Greetings, magical souls. I'm here today to share another snippet from an animal session that I had. This was one of the most intense sessions ever. This cat didn't just feel wild, he felt ancient. And also, he was a cat in spirit, which I think a lot of the ones that I've shared up until now have been living animals. All right, so this cat came across as a wise, ancient soul. For the first time ever, though, I had this real sense of deep, almost shamanic energies, like being really, really, really connected to the earth. And he came across as very distinguished. And I had this feeling like I almost wanted to like bow down in his presence. Like it was just, oh, I'm not worthy kind of thing. I mean, he was just, his energy was really, really hard to describe. But he was extremely loving and very, very in tune, but very distinguished. And there was this real ancient raw power to him. Despite him feeling very, very almost shamanic and very connected to the earth, and like everything that he was doing here, he was very, very present in his physical body. At the same time, he had this really, really like otherworldly energy, like, wow, like there's something going on here. He was very playful. He was into everything. He was super curious. If his mom was bringing something in, he would be there looking like in the bag and things like that. He'd be trying to get into the box or the packet or to see what was going on. But he also had these beautiful, playful moments. And the thing that he was sharing with me was that he was doing everything with like 1,000% of himself. Like there was almost no off button when this guy was ready to do things in his life. And everything felt like it was an adventure to him, like this life that he'd had with his human guardian was just, there was this life, there was just this adventure and life and fun and like, just like on turbo, like the whole time, like maximum power type thing, like no slowing down. When I asked him if he would like to share anything with me, I'm going to share this image with me direct from my notes because it's so powerful and I can't even just sort of glance at my notes and tell you the story. I actually have to read this part from the transcript. And I said here, wow, I don't know how to describe this, but I'm going to give it a go. If I can see Earth, and then it's almost like there are planets in a line. So sometimes when we see them lined up, when they show us those depictions on graphs or whatever, but it's the only way I could describe it was like the planet is on a different step. So instead of just showing me those diagrams of where we almost see Earth and then the planets kind of lined up in rings or whatever it is, however they lined up, he was almost showing me that imagery, but he'd added steps into it. So it became more like 3D, I guess. So each planet is on a different step. And somehow these look like steps to me. I just know they're different. But they're like different galaxies. So from this depiction, he's almost showing me himself walking up and down the steps. So what I'm really getting from this is that he is a walker between galaxies, not even just dimensions, but galaxies, like not even staying in this galaxy. So he was not only interdimensional, an intergalactic. I guess that's what this is, galactic or a galaxy. So he was an intergalactic walker. So this was such an unusual session. I mean, this cat was like, wow. Anyway, and then I said here, what's so interesting for me at the same time is he's so rooted to earth with these deep shamanic energies, very grounded. And whatever he did with 1,000% of himself. I get the sense that when he was here, he was with his consciousness, he was here on earth, but that he was very grounded, very stable, very connected to the earth. He wasn't airy-fairy, like floating around and doing other stuff. When he was here grounded, he was very, very present. I also get the sense that he was a very solid presence in your life. He was an anchor for you, a lighthouse. Oh, now this was very funny. He says he was here to balance the opposites and really be able to learn to work with duality. And he's just shared the word bipolar with me. And initially I was going like, what? But he shared with me that the bipolar is not what we think of it in terms of what bipolar means. Bipolar means for him that he can shift between these opposite poles. And so he's telling me that he had these bipolar abilities. He's saying not the mood disorder that you humans think of it. He's bipolar because he was shifting between the poles of the extremes. And he said to me that it was bipolar abilities, not a condition. So what I got the sense of from this cat is that whenever he was around, he would almost be able to, what he was showing me was that he could almost bring, almost if they're these two opposite polarities type thing, and boom, they would almost become like very, very centered, like almost instantly, because he had these bipolar abilities. So instantly bringing things back into the balance. He was really, really, really good the way he worked with energy. And I think it lends itself, well, it speaks volumes for the fact that I felt that he had this very ancient energy. So I feel like he was a very, very old soul, but old soul is different to an ancient soul. This was an ancient, ancient, ancient soul. The other interesting thing is that when I connect with animals and they send me love, I sometimes feel like quite deep emotions and things, which I will then translate for the client. With this guy, even though he was sharing these waves of love with me, and I got that he was very deep and very connected to his human guardian, and in physical form, and still is, he had this very almost like matter-of-fact way of sharing things with me. So he was so deeply loving, but I wasn't getting emotional like I can sometimes do when I feel the waves come through. It was almost like he had even mastered this neutrality. So he could send me exactly what he was thinking and feeling, but I almost wasn't feeling that emotion because he almost had this detachment. So he could send through exactly what he was trying to give to me, but without me actually feeling it, which is also very, very, very unusual. And it was just this real steady, neutral perspective for him. And again, I said that comes in with this ancient sort of energy. He's got almost a 360 view of everything, like he's all-knowing and all-seeing type of thing. So then I said to him, where are you now? Can you show me or tell me, or like, where are you, like in spirit, or are you in another body, or like, where are you? And he said to me, there is no where, it is only how. And then he shared with me that it's because he's everywhere. His energy is limitless, it's not confined. I get the sense that when he says this is how he means, he's almost condensing his energy to be in one spot, or he's doing work across galaxies or dimensions. But I'm almost seeing him being able, he's showing me his energy is like this beautiful energetic blanket. It looks almost like a magic carpet out of Aladdin, but it's just the swirling nebula. And he's showing me that it can almost stretch out very thin. So the image he sent me was like when people make pasta and they start to roll it and roll it and roll it, and then they stretch it and then they roll it through the machine and then they roll it through, and it gets thinner and thinner and longer and longer and longer all the time. That's the image that he was giving me of how he can stretch out his energy, or to be almost everywhere like this blanket or carpet, or to be very condensed in one spot. And so he's a master of energy. I mean, I'd never seen anything like this before. And then he shared with me, he isn't incarnated into physical form anywhere. He is pure energy, but from time to time he takes physical form. So I said to him, what do you mean by that? What do you mean from time to time you take physical form? And then he said to me, I'm sure that you're familiar with the term walk-in. So I can pour some of my essence into another physical body when he needs to do. And it's not necessarily all of his essence. And so what he shared with me, and again, this is where the shamanic energy came in, I could almost see these totem poles lined up. And he was showing me that he could put some of his essence into the totem poles and then it would go into the ground. But he didn't have to do all of it. It was almost like, I guess the easiest way to describe it would be like, because he was pure energy, he could almost put little fractals or little bits of his energy wherever he wanted to and how he wanted to, or withdraw them at any time. Or, I mean, he really was quite a master of energy. He was just a phenomenal cat. Anyway, and then I said to him, the question was, do you have anything to share with your mum? He said, I absolutely loved my life with her. I got the feeling that he wouldn't have done well with like any ordinary 3D human. That's kind of what was coming across. And that wasn't meaning to be disrespectful, but he needed to be with somebody who was a little bit more aware of these things, because I got the feeling from this cat that no ordinary human could have quite put up with him and his antics and his energy and that kind of thing. I'm referring to the people more that think the animals are just animals and there's nothing more to him. He was like, I was so big and powerful and too ancient to just be in a home where people just looked at me and saw a cat. And he knows that you saw him for the powerful ancient being that he was. And he really loved the fact that his mum recognized him for all of this, for his ancient power, his wildness, his beauty, his all of this. Like, and I kept saying to her that I got the feeling that she didn't try and contain this cat in any way, shape, or form. Like, she just allowed him to be exactly who he wanted to be. And this kind of cat probably would have driven half the population mad, as crazy as they were about cats. This is what I said to her. I said, I'm really getting is that you didn't go, gosh, this cat's such a problem, like some people would go. Like, this feels like chaos. Or why is this cat getting into fights? Or why is this cat like this? Or why is this happening? And can't he just be normal? And that kind of thing. But it was almost like you just took that all in your stride, because you felt or understood that he was something bigger. He was something raw and ancient. And this cat adores you because he felt like that was really honored, even though he was in a cat body. And so she didn't try to confine him or try and keep him safe. You just let him have this really wild life that he was here to fully experience. What he shared with me is he said, I have got to be with somebody that is going to really, really, really allow me to be who I am, because he shared this with me and it was so funny. He said, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to go back there as a cat, and look how most of these humans treat cats down there. It was like, I'm this bloody powerful being and you want me to go down there as a cat? Have you seen what humans do with cats? Oh my goodness. And I mean, all of this was just coming out in the session, and it was bloody hilarious. So anyway, and then again, I was saying, I again feel like I'm needing to like bow down in his presence. He's got this almost commanding and formidable like presence. And it's not formidable and scary, but it's like revered, commanding. Like, this was not just a pussy cat. This wasn't even a lion. This was like raw, untamed energy. I mean, it just like this primal energy almost. He really, again, he loved that his human honored his essence. And it was more than just even his personality as a cat. She actually honored the essence of his soul. She saw beyond the cat. And then he said he wanted to be recognized for who he was, because it was, if I'm going to go back there and have that experience as a cat, I can't live in a high-rise building or be contained in a cage, or someone's got me on a lead and taking me out for walks. I need somebody who's going to allow me to be wild and untamed, no edges. And it was so interesting because it's almost like he wanted to have that feeling of being free energetically, like when he wasn't confined to a physical body, but he was going to be confined to a physical body. I responded back to her afterwards, and I said with everything that she shared with me, and I said, oh, wow. I said, it makes so much sense to me reading through your email where you said that you and he did everything together. You took him camping, hiking. How awesome. That's exactly what he wanted to be doing, like everything 1,000% of a life. and she also mentioned that he somehow felt entitled, you know, that kind of thing. And it was this raw and powerful and distinguished, just commanded. And then she said that he would be fighting like all the time. He was getting into cat fights and whatever. And then apparently there was one time where they went hiking and he ran out wherever they were set up to camp or whatever, and she couldn't find him for a couple of days, and then found him, and she worried that something had eaten him or something wilder than him. Something had gotten hold of him or something had happened to him or whatever. And a couple of days later, she found him chasing some wild horses. I mean, this cat is just something else. I mean, but it just goes to show how much of his, like, this wild and untamed and completely unruly like behavior came through in his energy. And then also when I said, you know, I felt like bowing down in his presence and he had this formidable energy, what she also shared with me, that he would put on a show when her girlfriends came by. And this human actually referred to him as the king of everything, you know. So, and then her girlfriends would come around and then they would actually take pictures of themselves with this cat like he was some kind of god. I mean, this was such a fabulous session. And then I ended off by saying to her, wow, all those adventures that he had when he was here in the physical body, it makes so much sense from the reading that I did with him. Like when I said he was here, he was fully here, like 1,000% of him. He was getting in fights, he was getting stuff up, he was really putting his physical body through the ringer. But for him, it was like a go big or go home type thing. Now, what I really want to say after this session, I think the reason why I loved it so much, apart from the fact that this cat was just so matter of fact, direct, like no nonsense, just really, and just completely like off the reservation. I love how much his human accepted this cat, like fully and truly accepted this cat. I know when my cat goes out and is missing for just one day that I'm like, where's he? What's happened to him? I don't know if I could have been, well, I know that I couldn't have probably been a human guardian for this kind of cat. So, you know, hats off to this lady. But you know, sometimes people want to, and it even happens with dogs. Sometimes people want to train their animals. And I'm not saying that there's something wrong with training your dog, but I think the intention behind the training matters. Is it training because the dog is happier when they're working, like if they're a working dog or a gun dog or whatever it is? Or are you training the dog because it needs to fit into your life and it needs to behave in a certain way? That's kind of the distinction I'm making, because animals are also here to be their own sovereign beings and to have their own lives, and they choose to share them with us. But really, who are we to be training them to be a certain way that maybe not be fully them, you know? So I think that's just the distinction that I want to make. And I just want to just say, I think this human was amazing with her cat, and they were together for 20 years. So for 20 years, it was like living on the edge, where she didn't know one day to the next. He'd come home all stuffed up, he'd disappear, and they'd go on all these adventures together and what have you. And I mean, it just goes to show he was getting stuffed up all the time, going missing, all of these wild adventures, and yet they were together 20 years, which is a good innings for a cat. I mean, anyone who has a cat knows that that's kind of, if you've had a cat for 20 years, you know, it's a really, really, really good innings with a cat. I think from this also shows us that by letting them go out and be wild and whatever, if we're not living in fear all the time, or we don't have to worry that they're gonna go. And it also, you know, just proves the point again that when it's your time, it's your time, because he was getting stuffed up permanently and his body still lasted 20 years. So this woman just loved this cat for everything that he was. And you know, not once did she try and control, confine, or change him. And so for me, this human guardian just managed to show her cat unconditional love, true unconditional love, because she probably, this cat probably drove her mad. It probably caused her a lot of worry and stress and that kind of thing. But even after all that, she never tried to change him, and she just loved him for the wild, wild creature that he was. Isn't that what unconditional love is? It's loving something other, warts and all, irrespective of behaviors and that kind of thing. Yeah, I feel like this cat could possibly only have been with this one human. And so I hope you've enjoyed this sharing today. It was an absolutely fabulous session, and I don't know, maybe I've been prepared for one of my animals to come in and just be like totally and absolutely completely like nuts, and just maybe I'll just be able to also let them do their thing. But thank you so much for listening, and wherever you are, wishing you a magical rest of your day.